Alright folks, we're finally here. This was the first movie to be delayed by the pandemic. This movie's original release date was about 2 years ago. God, I hate this pandemic. But you know what? We finally have this movie now, so let's talk about some Bond. James Bond. No Time to Die. I love that title too. That just sounds like a Bond movie. And yeah, gotta dress up, look the part, you know how it is. So No Time to Die is the 25th movie in the James Bond 007 franchise. I don't have to explain to you what James Bond is, right? We can move on from that. This is Daniel Craig's 5th and final outing as the title character, James Bond. And yeah, this time it's confirmed. He will no longer be playing James Bond after this. So in No Time to Die, James Bond is kind of retired from the game. He's out of MI6. He's in a happy relationship with Madeleine Swan from the last movie, Spectre. But now Rami Malek is the villain, and he's got kind of a personal history with some characters in this movie. And so now James Bond and the rest of our crew have to take him down. That's one of the aspects of this movie. That's pretty much the main plot. There are other things going on in this movie. Judging by the runtime, you can probably assume that. This is the longest James Bond movie yet. It clocks in at 2 hours and 43 minutes long. Yeah, that's pretty nuts. Alright, Daniel Craig as James Bond. He's a great James Bond. And just like in Skyfall and in Spectre, they play up the fact that he's aging. I noticed that in all the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, he's never really in his prime as James Bond. He's either starting off in his 007 career, or he's getting to the end of it in which he's getting rusty. I mean, he's still a badass, absolutely. But the fact that he's not perfect, it humanizes him, makes him more relatable, and I do appreciate that. Rami Malek as the villain, Safin, though, I was like, I mean, he does have some moments in this movie where he takes a spotlight, and he's really good. He's an Oscar-winning actor, so his acting is gonna be great. And he is really menacing. When he shoots a guy, you just want to be like, another one bites the dust. My dad gets credit for that one. But compared to other Bond villains that we've had in the past, like Javier Bardem in Skyfall, or Auric Goldfinger, or Christopher Lee, he doesn't really size up. At least not in my opinion. The reason that he comes across as menacing is because he has personal ties with some characters in this movie that I'm not gonna spoil. There's another character worth mentioning in this movie. Her name is Nomi. She's played by Lashana Lynch. You may remember her from Captain Marvel. She's a new 00 agent, and I gotta say, I really liked her character in this movie. Cause I heard marketing-wise that this movie was going for, you know, like a hashtag Me Too generation type of James Bond movie, and I was afraid that it was gonna seem really forced and shoehorned. Like, oh, we have to have a social message in a James Bond movie. But no, that was not the case. Lashana Lynch was a badass in this movie, and her character worked really well in the story. She worked well with James Bond. She's a highlight for sure. I also do want to touch on Ana de Armas in this movie. She's not in the movie much, which did kind of bum me out because she is ridiculously hot. Like, when I saw her in the trailers, I was like, she's gonna be the Bond chick. And whether or not she is, I'm not gonna spoil, but I just felt that seeing her in this movie at all was a real treat. In that dress, just... yeah, I don't know how she could fight in that thing, but it happened. And with that, I'll just get right into the action, because when this movie starts off, oh my god, Bond just knows how to do action scenes right. Within the first, 20 minutes of this movie, there's an action scene that just blew my hair back. All of it. It was shot really well, the stunts were awesome. You got the Aston Martin DB5, which is the definitive James Bond car. I love that damn thing. They cut back on the shaky cam. I complained about the last movie in that it had quite a bit of shaky cam in there. This movie had some, but not as much as Spectre. But just from this opening action sequence, my dad leaned into me. He was like, I'm hooked. I was like, yep, so am I. Cause there's nothing like a classic James Bond action sequence. Specifically, a James Bond chase. I don't know what to say. They just know how to do chase scenes. They're going throughout a city. There's tourists everywhere. They're in cars and on motorcycles. Dude, it just doesn't get any cooler than that. The music's kicking on and you're just having a good time. And then the action scene wraps up and we go right into our song and title sequence, and now we have our James Bond movie. But then I will say this, there are things that happen in this movie plot-wise. Of course, I'm gonna be vague and I'm not gonna spoil them, but there were decisions that this movie's story decided to make throughout where I was like, I'm not sure if I'm liking that. Now, I will say, it all comes down to personal preference. This movie's getting some really good reviews, and so I guess a lot of people like the decisions that this movie's story made. And that's great. I'm not gonna tell anybody that they're wrong, because everyone's entitled to their own opinions. But for example, they say this in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. James Bond is in a committed, happy relationship with Madeleine Swan, and I don't know, I was like, that's not Bond to me. Look, from my understanding of what James Bond has always been, he's a coos hound. He's a player. Women are supposed to be a pastime for James Bond. You know what I mean? James Bond has never really been one to find love. He sleeps around. That's his thing. I'm not saying that's an ethically good or bad thing. I'm just saying that's what James Bond is. That's what he's been for decades. Now, I understand that the James Bond franchise has to evolve at some point, and this is Daniel Craig's interpretation of the character, but seeing him in a committed, happy relationship with someone, it just felt felt strange to me, because that's not what I was used to with James Bond. I've seen my fair share of James Bond movies. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a good amount of them. And throughout the decades, no woman has ever really stuck around, except for Moneypenny. But at least that made sense. I don't know, I guess I'm just an old school James Bond fan. These Daniel Craig James Bond movies are not really episodic like they were before he was played by Daniel Craig. They are more story-based, and they're thicker with plot and lore, which again shows in the runtime of this movie. This one being the longest one yet at 2:43. This is a very big, epic James Bond movie. And like the last few Craig Bonds, it is not for casual watching. Nah, in order to watch this, you gotta sit down and be willing to invest your time in it. And not just that, but you gotta be willing to watch a very different kind of James Bond movie than you might be used to. Cause it's not just the him being in a happy relationship thing. There are other things in this movie where I was like, that just feels different from any other Bond movie I've ever seen. Whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, well, that's up to you. But I'm just informing you of that. In my opinion, I thought it was a little weird. It was cool, and I commend the filmmakers for making these kind of decisions. Like, yeah, I don't think a James Bond movie has ever done this before. I don't know what the franchise is gonna do going forward from this. Especially with the ending. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm gonna try to be as vague as I possibly can. But the ending of this movie left me kind of confused. I was like, okay. And that's all I'm gonna say, because any more than that, and I think I'm gonna be saying too much. So in the end, No Time to Die is a pretty cool James Bond movie. For me, it's still not better than Skyfall. Skyfall is still the best James Bond movie ever, if you ask me, because that movie is just all kinds of awesome. But the action in this movie is great. The acting is fantastic from everyone. The music, holy shit, Hans Zimmer scored this movie, damn it. Yeah, this is Hans Zimmer scoring a James Bond movie. You can imagine the amazing greatness that'll come from that. When the theme's all kicking on, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You love it every bit as much as you always have, because it's just one of the best movie themes ever. The Billie Eilish song that plays during the opening title sequence though, I was like, it's kind of slow and boring. I was never a huge Billie Eilish fan, so it was kind of like Sam Smith's song in the last movie. It didn't really grip me, but the score is awesome though. I don't think I'm gonna get it, because again, I have Thomas Newman's score from Skyfall, and I'm good with that. I don't know, I may be biased here, but I do feel like the James Bond franchise kind of capped at Skyfall. I don't know, I haven't been proven otherwise yet, but this movie is still pretty cool. It's big, it's grand, it's epic, and it's a really good send-off for Daniel Craig as James Bond. For No Time to Die, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. So No Time to Die, have you seen it yet? What do you think about it? And what is your favorite James Bond song of all time? Me, I'm torn between three of them. Goldfinger's a classic, Paul McCartney's Live and Let Die, and Adele's Skyfall. Those three songs are all tied for the best for me. But whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.